Hey, we're about a quarter of the way through the year and I wanted to give you a tour of what I have going on in my sketchbooks so far. I have multiple sketchbooks on the go, and I first want to introduce you to the different books I have and why, and then show you a quick peek inside. So I have a spiritual sketchbook that is specifically for Bible verses that I have pictures to go with. And so this one is, Bible verses and sketched pictures. This one here is more of I would say it is still a very spiritual process for me. A lot of what is in here is still in my quiet, reflective time, but it's a little bit more multimedia, experimental, and I would say this is not a keepsake for me, whereas this book will probably end up being a keepsake and I'll keep it, on the bookshelf type of a journal. Where this one I rip pages out of and there's half-finished experiments going on in here, but it is still very reflective and some pieces that I cherish. This one here is just a spiral ring alcohol marker paper. So it's the Ohuhu brand, and I mostly use it for alcohol marker work, but it also has a little bit of other pen and ink work in it as well. And it's actually a lot of the stuff I get ready for YouTube. I'm doing in this first as practice runs. And then I do have other sketchbooks. For example, I have one that's just dedicated to my storybook, character development, storyboarding, that kind of thing. But these are the three I wanted to give you a quick tour through. So let's first start with the alcohol marker one. It's on top. Actually, I'll move these out of the way. And I'll move some of this out of the way so we can flip through this book together. So there might be an image or two here that were part of a class that are not my original design. But the majority of what you see here is all my original work, experiments really. They are pieces that if I wanted to develop further, I would end up taking onto a fresh page, developing it. These were really at the beginning of working with alcohol markers, which you'll see other videos on the channel. This image here, so this was part of a class. This is not my original artwork. This is a piece, it is original, and it is a piece featured in a video I have where I share about how I became an illustrator and sort of my steps into freedom in illustration. So you can look for that on the channel, but it's the piece I actually filmed the process of the piece as most of the B-roll for that. This is also a tutorial on the channel, so you can see my development happening for YouTube through this book. This was just something that inspired me from Pinterest, not my original design. But then you'll see that I'll play with something that I've seen, but then really develop it into my own. So a lot of times I do multiple versions of things in this sketchbook. This piece here, I have drawn it 5 times. I also did a tutorial on YouTube, but I drew it a lot because there was something about it that I wasn't capturing at first, and I just really wanted to practice it. Both tutorials on YouTube. Loving the alcohol markers at this stage, but you know how artists, we go through stages, so I haven't used those markers for a while now. Now this, I don't even know if I should show you this because it's kind of a secret project going on, but this is a character I'm working on for a storybook. You can find me over on the Picture Book Creators channel where I work through storybook development, and this is my little jumping bean that I'm working on, but loved practicing him in markers. Again, you see that little sparrow. Tutorial on the channel, but played a lot with just a brown Sharpie. I was just really into the brown Sharpie for some reason. And then you can see again with the lips, once again, tutorials, tutorial, and then here's more of my bean, and I was playing around with, so here, I'll just let you in on it. Back here where you saw this guy, my kid said, no, Mom, he looks like a jalapeno. He's supposed to be a bean. So I started working on him more beanie. And then this is just something that was inspiring me that later you'll see it ended up in my spiritual journal. And then actually that's the end here of this particular book. I've ripped out some pages along the way, but let's move on to the one that is now watercolor pages. So the one I was just showing you was marker paper. This is watercolor. It is a moleskin watercolor journal. I have to be honest, I don't love this format. I don't love this long horizontal format. I prefer if it was this way. And so this book has inspired me less simply because of the ratio of the paper. But what you're going to see here, I'll zoom in a little bit, is my version of like a Zentangle creative release where I'm using multi-medias. Okay, so I have this right in front of me here. I'll show you some B-roll of it. I have drawers of color pencils, markers, gel pens, Sharpies, you name it, just all kinds of multimedias there, even watercolor pencils. And I just sit with the, pull open a drawer and play. And I do this really still as a quiet time, reflective time with God, like a spiritual time in the mornings. A lot of times I'll have a Bible verse on my mind. But I'm not looking to produce anything from this process. I'm not looking to turn these into anything for sale. They're just really an expression for myself. A lot of times I think of them as warm-ups. I try not to critique or judge them because there is no point to that, especially if they're like just warm-ups and quiet time art. But what I do find from this process is that little things emerge that I take later into productive art. Little series of markings and images. This page is where I got just really into developing this particular tree. And I do believe I used it in an ink tutorial, but yeah. And then this was something I saw demonstrated on YouTube that I tried it for myself. And then here I am kind of up to date where I finished this one. Here, I'll zoom in to show you that one. But the one on this side is ready to go. So essentially I take watercolor and play with the watercolor to create my base. And then in a following session, after the watercolor is dry, I will go in and just mark it up. There are other channels who demonstrate this on YouTube that are so amazing at like a Zentangle type of art. I'm not looking to develop that kind of expertise in this, but it does inspire me. And I have been working on some surface pattern design, and I find that doing these kind of exercises inspires that. This was when I was getting ready for a tutorial here on YouTube, and I was watercoloring with markers. So water-based markers can be used, and then watered, like using a paintbrush, you can basically turn them into watercolor. I want to do a whole video about that. And so I was playing with these flowers and that technique. And that's it for this book. And then here for my spiritual journal. And as I mentioned earlier, this one is really used for Bible verses that are speaking to me that I want to particularly couple with a piece of art. This is a journal I will hang on to and keep almost as a record of what has been happening in my life spiritually in the year 2025. So I started it in January 2025. And even though it is watercolor paper, really thick pages, actually thicker than the moleskin, I got this on Amazon. It's the Handbook Journal Co., not affiliated. It's a Speedball art product. I really like this one a lot. Way thicker pages than the other I was showing you. When I first started, when I first started writing in it, I didn't I was just having one of those days. I didn't do any art on my first few pages. I was just really into the verses that I needed to document. And so I just started off with verses. I do think there's going to come a day where I go back into these and probably with a colored pencil begin to add some color to these pages. But my first artwork started with the sparrow, matching it to Psalm 50:11 and Matthew 10:29 and 31. And then I did a gouache piece, also a tutorial on the YouTube channel, but I did this gouache piece. I actually accidentally messed up what I put in this book because I used a little bit of alcohol marker on this side, which bled through and ruined this side. So I redid the gouache and stuck it in there with some hot glue. But it is paired with Genesis 1:3, and I could almost speak little sermons on what these mean to me, but I'm going to refrain today and just keep showing you the art book. Once again, I wanted a good feather and used some alcohol marker on top of the black Sharpie, ruined the page behind it. But it speaks to me on the shadow of your wing verse, which is Psalm 63:7. This one is what I would say is not my best piece of art, but I like the freeness of it. I wanted to get something that looked like a wheat field. It goes with the break up your fallow ground, and it really speaks to me, Genesis 16:13, and it does talk about the rain, and so I just tried to visually recreate that. The light, the lighthouse, and yeah, this one is a tutorial here, and I just really enjoyed this piece a lot. Got a lot of deep reflection out of doing this piece. And this is one thing to keep in mind with art. When you're creating pieces that are also to support your spiritual journey, your time is never wasted. It is like a way to digest what we're thinking on and meditating on. This is a piece here. I really like this one. But it will probably never live outside of this book. Like, this is a very personal piece to me. I'm going to zoom in and show you closer. It is using all the techniques I showed you in the last sketchbook, where I watercolored and then did a Zentangle multimedia. I say multimedia, but I think what I'm trying to say is mixed media type of thing on top of the watercolor. And I love this piece. I paired it with the verse, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." And I paired it with that because it really was a secret place type of artwork for me. And so yeah, and then a similar piece here, similar piece of, I guess I'm really into this one particular flower. I find it meditative and I really enjoyed it. So it's showing up in my artwork a lot. I'm also noticing floral is showing up, these bubbles. So I'll zoom in as close as I can to show you them, but they were really fun, really meditative. And then I use like this metallic type of marker that I have no idea where I got them from. They just showed up and I don't know, they've been in the bottom of a drawer, but I used them, loved them, had so much fun. And then here is that tree that you saw me developing in the other sketchbook. And then this one is a recent piece. It will also be on the YouTube channel, but I used a pencil called a Sketch and Wash, and it's essentially where the graphite is water soluble, so you can sketch and then use your paintbrush and water, and almost like a watercolor pencil, you can smear the graphite together to create blends, and you'll just have to play with it to know what I mean. And then this is just speaking to me of being in that veil of a quiet time. And I paired it with 2 Corinthians 3:18. And so this is really the first quarter of the year and the verses that really spoke to me. And then I guess now I've shown you the working sketchbooks that I have in my studio. There's other ones, like I mentioned, my storybook development one. But I also have random pieces of art just kind of like all over. So some of my gouache pieces are just loose, and they're just like hiding out in different drawers, and I have bins and drawers of just all kinds of artwork, so they don't all end up in a book. I do like having them in a book because I feel like they're easier to contain, but there's just some that I need to do on other paper. So I hope you enjoyed this tour for the first quarter of this year, and if hopefully you gained some sort of inspiration. I do want to say this in closing: sketchbooks are not meant to be perfect. They're a place of development, and they're really supposed to be personal. So try not to focus on perfection or critiquing yourself in your sketchbook work. Just let them flow, let your ideas come out, let them be a place of development. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, do all the things: the thumbs up, the subscribe, hit the bell, share it with a friend. And here on the channel, I've got pen and ink, gouache, digital art, a lot of scribble art tutorials because it seems like that's what the channel loves, and really all things creative here on the channel. And hopefully you can stick around and enjoy the videos. Bye for now.